Food idioms. An apple of one's eye. For example, her little daughter is the apple of her eye. To take a story with a grain of salt. For example, my friend is an imaginative person, and I always take everything he says with a grain of salt. About the salt. For example, Tom considers himself above the salt, since getting the big promotion at the law firm last month. As full as an egg. For example, after all that food, I'm as full as an egg. To have egg on one's face. For example, I was completely wrong and now I have egg on my face. For example, Dan has egg on his face. He feels embarrassed after they have discovered his lie. Carrot and stick. For example, companies are slowly learning that the carrot and stick approach to management is ineffective. Employees are much more motivated to do a better job when they are recognized for their hard work. For example, some schools prefer the carrot and stick method when it comes to education. To live off the fat of the land. For example, Paul lives in a very remote place, so he mostly has to live off the fat of the land. The fat is in the fire. For example, now the fat's in the fire. The boss arrived early and we'll see we haven't even started work. As cool as a cucumber. For example, my friend Mike is as cool as a cucumber. He never gets upset. Milk and honey. For example, it might be better than where you came from, but don't think this is some utopia or land of milk and honey. We still have to work for what we have. Not somebody's cup of tea. For example, I know that horror films are not your cup of tea, but you should definitely see this one. It's amazing. Be keen as mustard. For example, the class was as keen as mustard to begin the 4-day trip. For example, she went to Europe for a vacation and came home as keen as mustard to go back. Cut the mustard. For example, my neighbor had applied for the post of architect in a big project, but didn't cut the mustard. For example, that girl wants to be the captain of the team, but does she cut the mustard? As easy as apple pie. For example, my English exam was as easy as apple pie. Cakes and ale. Life isn't all cakes and ale, you know. To sell like hot cakes. For example, his new video game is apparently selling like hot cakes. For example, copies of the book are selling like hot cakes. To take the cake. For example, of all the people I've met, you take the cake. You're the wildest. For example, a lot of surprising people here today, but I have to say you take the cake. Full of beans. For example, my kids are full of beans today. They must be excited about something. Spill the beans. For example, my friend promised not to spill the beans about my plans to get engaged. A hard nut to crack. For example, Mila is a hard nut to crack. That is why he hasn't any friends at the university. For example, this assignment is a hard nut to crack. Run out of juice. For example, I'm packing 2 spare phone batteries so I don't run out of juice on my climbing trip. Step on the juice. Come on, step on the juice or we will be late. Let someone stew in their own juice. For example, Fred was in such a full mood at dinner that I left early and just let him stew in his own juices. To upset somebody's apple cart. For example, try not to upset the apple cart, as we have spent a lot of time working on this project. In smooth water. For example, no one wants to rake up your past. It is over, and you are now in smooth waters. In low water. For example, I'm in low water until I get paid next week. So, is there any chance we can postpone our night out? Get into hot water. For example, if you break the rules of the road, you will get into hot water. Written in water. For example, like you said, Kevin, this friendship is written in water. In deep water. For example, after my husband lost his job, we were in deep water. The fruits of one's labor. For example, please have some fresh strawberries. They are the fruits of my labor in the garden. Worse one thought. For example, when the baseball team lost 2 games in succession, people felt that the coach was hardly worth his salt. Take the bitter with the sweet. For example, John was tough. He was able to take the bitter with the sweet. Back to the salt mines. For example, the work was tedious. They finished their coffee and went back to the salt mines. As flat as a pancake. For example, the early people believed that the earth was as flat as a pancake. As busy as popcorn on a skillet. For example, the little boy was as busy as popcorn on a skillet all day long. Take a lick. For example, will you stop the car at the side of the road? The kids want to take a lick. Big cheese. For example, though my uncle is a big cheese on the company, I never ask him for help. As nutty as a fruit cake. For example, Diana is nutty as a fruit cake. She is irritational and crazy. Slice of the cake, pie. For example, Dora demanded that she be given a slice of the cake in the family business. As warm as toast. For example, I have very cozy bed. It is as warm as toast. As sweet as honey, sugar. For example, Melanie's conversation is as sweet as honey, but I can't very well believe her. As sour as vinegar. For example, Mr. Thompson is not at all friendly. He is as sour as vinegar. Salt something away. For example, I have been salting away some money so that I can go on a holiday to Italy. Salt of the earth. For example, the majority of the people in our company is the salt of the earth. They are hardworking and friendly. As thick as a pea soup. For example, the fog that day was as thick as pea soup and caused my accidents.